Wow, bear down, Bears fans. What's going on, Breeze Nation? We are here for another episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us for another episode. On today's episode, man, we are going to be breaking down the Bears and Lions game. Don Bird will be in here soon. I'm very sure of it. But we'll be talking Bears and Lions on today's episode, man. What do the Bears have to do to get a win? I'll give you my keys to a Chicago Bears victory. And then we will look at this Bears defense, right? Because finally, we've got the offense moving in the right direction. But what's going on with the defense? Like, I understand we're missing players. Who's to blame? Should we be looking at Fuls because this is his expertise? I'm hearing a lot of rumblings that what's going on with Fuls, this is supposed to be what he does. This is what he does best. And the defense looks pretty bad. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, we'll get into the Chicago Bulls at the end of this show, breaking down their loss to the New Orleans Pelicans last night and some of the issues we saw there. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rock with us for another episode. If you have not done so, I need y'all to go ahead and do me a favor and just
push the button. Come on. Push the button. Come on, push the button.
Yeah, come on, push the button.
hit that like button, subscribe to the page, man. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talk. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. And by the way, listen, here's the thing. Don't be selfish with the show, right? Don't be selfish with the show. Let's get some word of mouth going on this mug, man. That's the best way to see these things grow. If you enjoy the show, tell somebody that you enjoy the show. I challenge everybody in here. Tell 5 people that you enjoy this show and that they should listen to this show Monday through Friday from 11 to 12. Appreciate y'all for showing love and tuning in on it with us on that, man. We got a Bears-Lions game coming up this Sunday, man. And y'all know how I am with Detroit. Y'all know how I get down with Detroit. I got smoke for all of y'all. Everybody in Detroit versus Chicago, whatever you want to do, I got the smoke. But at the end of the day, I also have to be realistic and look at the team that we have here and give y'all proper insight and give y'all proper breakdown and give y'all proper understanding of what to expect in this Bears game coming up on Sunday. The Bears are going in versus a Detroit team. Game is here in Soldier Field, which helps, right? Makes a difference. But you're going into a game where, in theory, the Bears should be able to come out of the game with a win. In theory, the Bears offense should be enough because clearly, right, a Detroit offense the last couple of weeks has not been able to put up points, has struggled at best to put up points versus a lot of these versus the Green Bay Packers, right? Versus a lot of teams here where you just look at them and you're like, you should be able to score on this team, especially with how Detroit got started off with the season offensively. But I'm looking at this, and it does go into one of our other topics today, but I'm looking at today, and I'm looking at this Detroit team. I don't think Jared Goff's a very good player. I think he's a bridge quarterback at best. I think that's the best you can hope for with a guy like Jared Goff. I think that's pretty much what he is, and you should be able to beat him. But the one thing that we haven't seen from the Chicago Bears team over the last few weeks, and the thing that I think makes this defense look so bad, is that you've seen just about no pressure on the quarterback. And while I don't think that Jared Goff is a very good quarterback, he is an NFL quarterback. And if you allow him to stand back there untouched all day, he will be able to find Amon-Ra St. Brown and pick you apart in that sense. There are some things defensively here that do concern me going into this game with the Chicago Bears. I think that Detroit is a team. I don't think they have a lot of talent at the weapons position. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is a better wide receiver than probably you could say anything that we have here. But outside of that, right, their talent comes at the one spot where the Bears have struggled most, and that's on the offensive line. And guess what? On that defensive line, not a lot of guys over there. Not a lot of guys over there that we've seen in these past 3-4 weeks that have really done a good job getting to the passer. Maybe you've seen Justin Jones kind of with a little bit of pressure. I think he's done okay. Dominique Robinson, what's happened to him, right? Like that was the bet that you were going to take. Hey, we want to see if these young guys are going to be able to play. We want to see if Dominique Robinson is going to be able to take this step, but he's still a rookie 5th-round pick. 6th-round pick? Is he a 5th or a 6th? He's still a rookie pick at that, right? So there's some development that has to happen there with a guy like that. There he is. Don Burr in the chat. What's going on, brother? But I don't think that the Detroit Lions are this juggernaut that we're going to be going up against, that we're going to struggle against offensively, right? Because, I mean, their DBs are basically just, they're coming off a really good game versus the Packers where Aaron Rodgers throws a ton of picks. It's very uncharacteristic of Aaron Rodgers, and it's very uncharacteristic of the Packers, except there's no weapons this year, and Detroit takes advantage of that. But the one thing that, the only apples-to-apples comparison I can really see with this Bears team is that, right, like when you see what Philly was able to do with a mobile quarterback, and not to say that the Bears are on the same level, right, but you see how Justin Fields is able to lose his legs. You saw how Jalen Hurts was able to use his legs. I believe Jalen Hurts had 90 yards against the Detroit Lions defense, and it's just one of those situations where, yeah, they can do everything right. Detroit can have that perfect defensive line. They can have a guy that absolutely can get at Justin Fields, which absolutely they do. Boy, they got a dog on that defensive line, don't they, right there, my boy? I'll tell you that right now. But at the end of the day, right, it's about what is your game-breaking player going to do, and the Bears finally have a game-breaking player in Justin Fields. I think the interesting thing is that, and the thing that I'm looking for most offensively is, okay, you're going to be able to attack these DBs, especially if you're able to get the ball on the move. You're going to be able to move the ball down the field. I expect the Bears to be able to score, but can you get pressure on Jared Goff? I don't think this is going to be a cakewalk game, even though it's Chicago over Detroit all day. I think this is going to be a divisional game where there's a lot of people, especially on that Detroit side, that are looking at what Justin Fields did last week, and they're saying there's no way he's going to do that to us. They're going to come out a lot more aggressive. They're going to come out a lot more physical. They're going to come out with a lot more pressure, and they're going to try and bring Justin Fields down in that backfield. Now, the thing is, right, like he's gotten to a point where the blitz isn't working as well against him. You can send that blitz, but guess what? He's sidestepping that blitz. The offensive line is doing a better job, especially when they're adjusting to a max protect situation. Yeah, he's only got one hot route, but he's the hottest route on the team right now. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things where I see with this Bears team where I'm like, you should be able to come out of this game with a win. There's pretty much nothing that I'm worried about on the Detroit side offensively that scares me outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown. And the only way that you're going to get him as involved in the game is if you're not getting to the quarterback. Jared Goff, again, is not a good quarterback. He's not. I've said this a million times. I don't care how much kid has come out in defense of Jared Goff and said, oh, it's the system. You put him in that same system and he'll be able to. No, he's not. He's not a good quarterback. He's pretty bad, actually. He's fairly awful. But what the heck is going on there? Tried to have the chat pop up and that popped up. What the heck was that? Okay, we're gonna take that off there. Boom. All right, that was weird. I'm gonna have to adjust that. The chat tweaking this morning. But at the end of the day, right, like you have to be able to get to the quarterback. That needs to be a focus. And I think that's going to be one of that's my biggest key coming into this week. I got my 3 keys to the game. Hit the like button if you guys are in here, man, enjoying the content. I'm going to give you my 3 keys to a Bears victory in this one. My biggest key right now is get to the quarterback. Get to Jared Goff. Jared Goff is prone to make mistakes. Jared Goff is prone to throw interceptions. Jared Goff is he's just not a guy that is a very talented player. But at the end of the day, if you give him time, he's going to be able to stand back there and pick you apart. I think we've seen that in this Bears team a couple of times, right? Like we've seen we've gone up against Jared Goff, and Jared Goff has been able to get after us because of what? He's just been able to stand back there in the pocket and live. But now you have to see, right, how you're going to be able to attack outside of that. How you're going to be able to get to him defense, because the Bears aren't blitzing. The Bears haven't blitzed all year. They've done a little bit on third down, but for the most part, they're not a blitz team. So now you're dropping a lot of guys back in coverage. You're trying to get pressure with 4. That's not going to work. They have, 3 down? How many first-round picks y'all got on that offensive line? 3 first-round picks on that offensive line? They have talent on that offensive line. Now, at the end of the day, right, the head coach absolutely causes some issues for you. I mean, they might like him up there in Detroit, but he's a guy that I look at and I'm like, he's beatable. But one of my major keys, right, and I guess I'll jump straight into my keys. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us, man. One of my first keys to this game is getting pressure on Jared Goff. Force Jared Goff to be uncomfortable. We haven't seen a quarterback be uncomfortable in weeks. I mean, literally, we're talking about, 2-3 weeks in a row? Maybe a little bit, but I can't say that. 2 weeks. Mac Jones was definitely under pressure. Zappy was under pressure a little bit as well. But against Dallas, against the Dolphins, right? Tua got pressured, what, twice? He picked you apart. And the other thing you have to be concerned about with this team is where the middle linebacker position has really gone, where that middle of the field has really gone, because you saw, and the Lions are going to use that, right? Especially with St. Brown. They're going to say, hey, listen, the middle of the field was wide open all night. They're playing in that 4-3, trying to go with a little what not really Tampa 2, I guess kind of Tampa 2, but not really. But like going with that 4-3 defense and playing in a zone, okay, we're going to be able to pick the middle of the field apart, because guess what? Roquan Smith ain't there no more. We don't have to worry about the pressure as much on the defensive line, because guess what? Robert Quinn ain't there no more, right? Like that's where you want to see these young guys step up. That's where you want to see these young guys start to make plays, right? And I think that there's a little bit of a comfortability issue that might have gone into that last game versus the Dolphins, but also, right, like you have to play back in a situation versus the Dolphins. I think they'll probably play the defense a little bit different here versus the Lions, but you have to play back in that situation versus the Dolphins, because if Tyreek Hill gets behind you, it's over. And especially with you not getting pressure to the quarterback, if Tyreek Hill gets behind you, it's over. So I think my first key to this game, you have to get pressure on Jared Goff. Jared Goff's very prone to make mistakes. He's a very game manager kind of QB. You have to figure out, and I guess my second key is, right, like you have to figure out how to stop the run. This is a Detroit team that understands what Jared Goff is, right? Like they know. They're not sitting up here naive like, oh, Jared Goff's going to be able to throw us out of this game. He's going to be able to they're not sitting here waiting for Jared Goff to be the answer offensively. So they're going to run the ball. They're going to do a lot of things with that running game, and that's been a weakness of the Chicago Bears all season. It's not even just since we got rid of Roquan Smith and since we got rid of Robert Quinn. No, that's been something that the Bears have been able to get exploited on all season. The run defense has been pretty bad this year, and I mean, like, Swift is going to be able to take advantage of that. I think that and it's not even just to say, like, even with Swift, right? Like, I think Swift's pretty good back, but I'm not overly worried about him. It's just not. But that offensive line, are they going to be able to create holes for him? We've seen running backs that we didn't think, hey, we'll be able to contain him. We've seen that multiple times this year, and guess what? They've been able to rush the ball on us. So that's kind of the concern that I have coming in this week. Again, a defensive concern. It'll get into the topic that we're going to break down at the end of this. But, like, when you have those concerns defensively, right, not getting pressure on the quarterback, not being able to stop the run, those are the things that I'm looking at, and I'm saying, all right, well, if you've got these two issues, like, that means they're going to be able to score points. And the Lions have shown that they have an ability to put up a lot of points, but we just haven't seen that consistently. And you don't want your week to be the one week where they're like, oh yeah, we remembered how to play offense again, right? Like, so I think this is going to be a big week for the defense. I'm really looking at Allen Williams to try and lock some of these things down, and not just Allen Williams, right? I'm looking at this team as a whole. I need to see this Bears team as a whole figure out, okay, when I'm in the position, I need to make the play. Because the one thing that I will say about Allen Williams, the one thing that I will say about this Bears defense is it doesn't seem like they're just out of position. Even a lot of those plays, right, where Tyreek Hill's just standing in the middle of a zone, there were guys there. They just weren't running hard enough to the play to make the play. Heck, there was one play. What was the touchdown? There was one touchdown legitimately that Tua threw, and I want to say it was to Wilson. Is that his name, Wilson? And even on the TV, they were like, I absolutely thought Jaquan Brisker had an interception here, but he didn't break on it. He didn't break on the ball. He didn't run to the ball. He didn't attack the ball. And so, right, like, we need to see more of that. We need to see, and I like these young guys coming up. I like Brisker. I like Gordon. I like how they're developing. Jalen Johnson's kind of showing me a little something. They haven't really gone to his side of the field as much because they're trying to attack the rookie. I think that Eddie Jackson is having a resurgence, right? But when you have a devoid of talent, when you're missing a good chunk of talent, when you're missing a lot of the things defensively that once were here, I mean, you talk about a defense, right? You basically blown up that whole defense. No Mac, no Quinn, no Hicks, no more Roquan, no more. I said Quinn already, right? Like you got rid of a ton of players on the defensive side of the ball there, and so now you have to replace talent with hustle. Does it work every week? Is it going to work versus the best of the best? No, it's not. But if you're breaking to the ball harder than somebody else, if you're attacking on a play harder than somebody else, that's where that hits principle that Fuls has implemented, right, really comes into play. Because to me, that's where I want to see the Bears most, right? Like, I want to see who's the guy that's going to outwork one of these Detroit Lions. I want to see who's the guy that's going to outwork somebody on the other side of the ball. And we haven't seen that these last couple of weeks, and the scores have been quick. I mean, like, you've seen Tua and you've seen Dak Prescott go down the field like that. So you've got to figure that out. That's the side of the ball that I think is most important for the Bears in this Lions game, because I think the Bears will be able to put up points. The Lions defense is prone to giving up the run. You've got two really solid running backs on this team. You still have the best running back in the NFL. Monty didn't have a great game last week, so I know he's going to have a resurgence game this week. You've got dominant a dominant ground game, and by the way, you have Justin Fields being able to get down the field. And I think that's the thing, right? After these last couple of weeks, that's the one thing that I want to see the Bears continue with. I don't want to see them all of a sudden forget their identity. Listen, I love that Justin Fields is throwing the ball more. I love that Justin Fields is putting the ball in the air more. I love that we're seeing Justin Fields do more things like that. But at the end of the day, this offensive line is still not suited for pass pro. This offensive line is still not suited for slowing down the defense in pass pro. So now I'm looking at the situation where I'm going, okay, hey, listen, I really, really like a lot of what you're doing offensively, but let's not forget what our bread and butter is. This is a game that you absolutely can win. And yeah, I know that it's one of those where, I know that it's one of those where you're trying to slowly develop Justin into what you want him to be at the end of the day. And so you have to give him a little bit more. He's understanding the offense a little bit more. You have to give him a little bit more, right? But at the end of the day, this is a game that's winnable. This is a game that you can go get. Unless you're legitimately trying to tank, Justin Fields can still be your focal point offensively and will be your focal point offensively, especially with Kirby Joseph coming around the edge, right? Like you're going to want Justin Fields on the move. But at the end of the day, you need to remember that the running backs are the identity. That's how you beat that blitz. That's how you beat those guys coming around the edge. Use your running backs to your advantage. Use that run game to your advantage. It's what they're the best at it in the NFL. They're legitimately the best at it in the NFL. And so for me, right, that's the part where I'm looking at this Bears team and I'm saying, hey, let's remember what our identity is. This is a game you can go in there, you can run it down their throats, you can get into the end zone, you can win time of possession, you can win the clock game, and then you got to figure out how to slow them down defensively. That's the one concern that I do have with this Bears team going into pretty much the rest of the season, right? Because the defense has been subpar for the most part. Like the video if you agree. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel to talk Chicago sports, how Chicago talk. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. Those are essentially my three keys to this game, right? You got to get pressure on the quarterback. You've got to figure out a way to slow down this run game. I mean, we pretty much could say that every week. And then at the end of the day, right, like, you have to remember what your identity is, because this is a Detroit team that is very, very willing to allow you to run the football all night long on you. So I feel like those are going to be the best key, or the best way for the Bears to just remember, right? Like, hey, listen. Yes, we're here about development. Yes, we're here about growing this team. Yes, we're trying to figure this out. But at the end of the day, I want to see the best talent on the field. I want to see the Chicago Bears get a win. I want to see especially to the Detroit Lions, right? Like this is when you don't want to lose the Lions. Like that's a new low. That's a new low. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us, man. I do want to talk more about this defense because, as I alluded to, there's been some blame that's been going around the Bears' way, and I want to know how you guys feel on the topic, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. And we're live Monday through Friday from 11 to 12, so tune in with us on that. Here's my question to you guys on the Chicago Bears defense. We've seen a defense over the last 2 weeks that has been run through, cut through like a hot knife through butter. They have been dominated on just about every aspect. Tua looked like a god against the Chicago Bears last week. When you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, right, you also have to talk about the two major pieces of your defense, your two leaders of your defense being taken away right before the last two games, right? Major changes coming right before your last two games. And so here's my question to you. When you see how this defense has been playing, when you see how subpar they've been, who are you most looking at as the issue in that situation? Are you looking at Fuls? Are you looking at Allen Williams? Are you looking at just a lack of talent? What are you looking at most when it comes to the Chicago Bears defense? Because I think here's the thing that I'm really focusing in on. With this Bears defense, they've gone through a couple of major pieces being shipped off in the last couple weeks. They've gone through a couple of major pieces being traded away in the last couple of weeks. And that's hard to bounce back from. And they haven't looked prepared over the last couple of weeks. But I'm seeing a lot of people look at Fuls and say, this is your expertise. This is what you do. You should be able to figure out how to get this defense. And here's the thing. I'm not saying to look good, but to look competent. The defense the last couple of weeks hasn't looked competent. They've given up, 49 and 35? How much 49 and 35 over the last 2 weeks. That's not a competent defense. Now, I guess you could say that's getting better. And technically, the defense only gave up 28 in that second week. But when I look at this defense, I'm trying to figure out more so where the improvement can come most. Where do we think is it the coaching? Is it Fuls? Or is it just the talent? Because to me, I'm looking at a defensive unit right now that at the end of the day, I see them being in position to make a play, and they're not making plays. I see them being in position to make a tackle, and they're missing the tackle. I see them being in position to bring somebody down who's running the football and maybe not allowing them to get an extra 5 yards, and they're allowing them to get that extra 5 yards, right? Like, and that's the thing that is concerning to me. Because while there is a lack of talent, 100%, you can't say that the Bears aren't lacking talent on that side of the football. There's a lot of young talent on that side of the football. You basically have guys, you know what I mean, at your linebacker position. I think on the defensive line, right, you've got Dominique Robinson, young talent. Outside of that, right, there's just not a lot of guys that are creating pressure on the football. But at the end of the day, there's two things that I'm really looking at, and it's both of the coaches. Because when you lost Roquan, when you lost Quinn, it went from being, right, like when we talk about the offensive side of the football, the offensive side of the football looks so disciplined. It looks so, I mean, like you're not seeing a lot of offensive penalties. You're not seeing a lot of false starts. You're not seeing a lot of guys moving. You're seeing guys understand where they're supposed to be on the field. You're seeing, right, like you're seeing discipline on the offensive side of the ball. When you get to the defensive side of the ball, not to say that they're not disciplined, but it's like they're not playing in the right spots. They're not getting to their spots quick enough. They're not hustling to their spots, which is a big part of that hits principle, right? Quick enough. And that's the part where I'm looking at this Bears team and I'm saying, okay, yes, I understand Roquan Smith isn't there. I understand Robert Quinn isn't there. I understand you got rid of Khalil Mack. You got rid of Akeem Hicks, right? I get all of that. I'm fine with that. But there's also times where you're not making the play that's there to be made. And even Coach Fuls talked about it in his press conference yesterday, right? He talked about execution. He talked about how the defense just isn't executed. They're there, but you have to execute that play. You have to be able to bring that guy down. You have to be able to, right? Like, so to me, right, that's the part where I'm looking at and I'm like, okay, yeah, there's a part that's definitely on the players. For sure. They're the ones out there making the plays. But why aren't they executing at a rate like we saw, right? Like it can't just be, oh, they don't have enough talent to do that. We're seeing guys just not break to the ball hard enough. We're seeing guys, and maybe it's just youth. Maybe it's just that they haven't been in these situations a ton before, right? Like Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, those guys, right? I look at a little bit different. But there's a mindset there that we're not seeing on the defensive side that I think we were seeing early on in the year, right? And remember, before we got to, who was it? Was it before we got to Detroit, right? We had only allowed 1 second half touchdown. Before we got to Detroit, we'd only allowed 1 second half touchdown. Not Detroit, Dallas. We'd only allowed 1 second half touchdown. Maybe two. And so that's the part where I'm looking at and I'm like, okay, like what happened to that? Roquan Smith doesn't just change 1 second. He helps. But that means there was a collection. That means that there was a mindset. That means that there was an understanding of, hey, I need to be in this spot. I need to make this play. And I'm not saying, right, there is a human element to this too. You saw two of your brothers get shipped off. You saw two of your brothers get traded away. That plays into it. And I can't kill Kyler Gordon. I can't kill Jaquan Brisker, Jalen Johnson, all those guys, right? Because it starts up front. So I'm sitting here watching a game where there's 5-6 seconds going off of the clock and the quarterback still has no pressure. I'm looking at the dogs up front. I'm looking at the guys up front. I think that plays a big part into it as well. But even right, like there were plays to be made on Sunday defensively that weren't made. And I think that's the part where I have a little bit of concern. And I understand, right, at the end of the day, this is a trial year. This is not it's all figured out year. I understand that. But you still want to see your team have those guys perform. You still want to see your team be able to slow guys down, right? And if you're not bringing that pressure, that means that you're understanding, okay, when I'm dropping back, guess what? I have to be able to play the middle of the field. I have to be able to slow these guys down. I've got to. It's going to be more time. It's on me. And there's no DB in the world, I mean, outside of maybe Prime, that's going to be out there for 5-6 seconds doing a great job on the guy he's covering. You got to get that pressure. But the one thing that I will say, right, and I think here's the part that I look at the most when I'm looking at who do we put the blame on, whatever it is. I like how Fuls has handled it. I like the understanding of the system of power that is in place. Fuls isn't, oh, the defense is struggling, let me get my hands on that. Right? Like, remember Matt Nagy when the offense was struggling? Oh, I'll fix it. Don't worry about it. I'll fix it. I'll do it. Fuls is out here. He's playing like a general, delegating to everybody else. Hey, listen, you got the offense. Getsy, that's on you. Let's figure it out. I'll work with you on that. We'll talk about some stuff together, but it's your offense. Run it. Hey, Williams, you got the defense. Hey, listen, we're going to have conversations. You know I'm going to be in the defensive meeting rooms. I'm going to be talking with the guys. We're going to set a standard here. But he's not taking it away. And again, I talked about this yesterday, right? The things that excite me with this Chicago Bears team. That's something that excites me with the Chicago Bears team. It's a leadership mentality. There's a leader in the room. And yeah, there's some blame that's going to go on him. I'm not going to lie. I think a little bit of the players hustle, right? Like, not to say the players don't have to do it, but I feel like there could be a little bit more hustle from the team as a whole on the defensive side of the football. I think everybody would agree with that. But the bottom line is that Alan Williams is trying to figure that out. Alan Williams is trying to implement that. Alan Williams is calling these plays. He's the one putting them in a position. And I think for the most part, right, the Bears are in a position. You just got to make the play. And maybe that's where the lack of talent part does come in. But I'm looking at how Fuls is working with the talent that he has. And I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about the coaches. I'm looking at how Fuls is working with the coaching staff that he has, and he's not saying, hey, let me get that up off of you, my boy. He's not saying, hey, you're not calling that good enough. I need to take that back because I know how to call this defense. Because at the end of the day, right, it is what it is. Either you picked the right guy or you didn't. And if you don't believe that you picked the right guy, that's on you. So now I'm looking at the situation where Fuls clearly feels like he picked the right guy and he can actually be the head coach. He's not sitting there when it's 3rd and 7 and you're trying to figure out a defensive play to stop the ball and there's a play on the field and it's like, hey, coach, you want to challenge that? And he's like, what are you talking about? He doesn't know what the play is right now, right? Like Fuls is understanding that, hey, I need to know what's going on the field so that I can properly assess what's happening on the field and understand and relay this message to my coaching staff and say what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking and be able to make these coaching decisions. Am I taking this penalty? Am I not taking this penalty? What's the situation with the clock? I love that we have a CEO in place. So when I'm looking at, okay, the defense is struggling, is it talent, is it coaching, is it blame? I'm putting, like, of course, it all falls on Fuls at the end of the day. But I'm looking at Fuls as, hey, you're understanding that you have a bigger job than just trying to be a really good defensive coordinator. You have a bigger job that includes the entire Chicago Bears team. And that's one thing that I think the Bears really just haven't had. That's the one part that gets me a little bit excited about where this coaching staff is, because that's the one thing the Bears haven't had. We haven't had just a leader of men. We've had coordinators. Lovie Smith called his defense. John Fox, maybe John Fox a little more leadery, but didn't have much of a team. Matt Nagy called his offense. Trestman called his offense. Right? Like when you have that leader, when you have that, that's the part where I'm like, we talked about this week, right? Are the Bears set up for the future? Yes. Because you've got a guy that, here's the thing, Alan Williams does a great job. If he does, somebody's going to offer him a head coaching job. That's inevitable. Luke Getsy does a great job. Somebody's going to offer him a head coaching job. That's inevitable. So what do you need that's going to be stable? What do you need that's going to be in the right position? You have to have that leader of men. And I think you finally have that. And so when I'm looking at the defensive struggles, right? Yeah, I want Fuls to give his input. Yeah, I want Fuls to be over there like, hey, maybe these are some tweaks we can make. And I think Alan Williams has talked about that they have done that. He understands where the issues are coming in, right? You heard Fuls talking about 3rd down execution. We get these guys in the 3rd and longs and we can't get a stop. At the end of the day, 3rd down execution is poor right now. We've got to figure that out. We've got to understand that as a collective. But Alan's going to work with the team on that. He's going to figure that out. Because my job is bigger than just the Chicago Bears defense. My job is bigger than just the Chicago Bears being able to stop the run on 3rd down. My job is, okay, now that we stop the run on 3rd down, what's the decision we need to make coming off into the kickoff? What's the decision we need to make if we get a turnover here? What's the decision we need to make if that's what I want to see my head coach do. And I'm glad that we finally have a guy that seems like he's going to be able to do that. The whole coordinator thing, right? Like that I get it. That's the modern NFL and it works. I'm not saying it doesn't. But the big picture at the end of the day is, can you lead these men? Not can you lead this offense? Not can you lead this defense? Because you need both sides of the ball. You need both sides of the ball to win football games. And I'm not gonna lie, bro, when Fuls came in, he said, hey, no, I'm gonna be focused on figuring out how I'm going to be focused on the head coaching position. I'm going to have coordinators in there. They're going to do their job. That got me the most excited out of anything because, right, like you have a coach that's focused on what's happening on the field. That's the most important thing. How many times in previous regimes have we seen coaches that just, they're so focused on one side of the field? Heck, as much as I like Lovie Smith, he took us to the only Super Bowl I've ever seen in Chicago. We didn't win it, but he took us there. And that defense takes you there. That defense carries you there. Lovie Smith didn't give a hoot about the offensive side of the football. Lovie Smith could have cared less about the offensive side of the football. Even Olin Kreutz would talk about, right? Like he talked about, he said Lovie used to be like, oh, well, you know, when he say Lovie used to say, he said, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing and eventually it's going to work. And Olin would be like, bro, this ain't working. He didn't care about the offensive side of the ball. He cared about takeaways, cared about the defense putting you in a position to have easy scores. That's all he was worried about. Matt Nagy was only worried about throwing the football down the field. I don't know what Mark Trestman was worried about. He was worried about his action figures in the back of the room. He was worried about that Star Wars museum popping up in the back of the room. I think that's all Mark Trestman was worried about. I don't really know if he was worried about anything football wise. But that's what I'm looking at from my head coach. That's the part that I'm looking at. Like the video, if you agree, that when you have a head coach that's being a head coach, that's leading, that, yeah, I like that he has some understanding of both sides of the football, but I don't care. Can you get 53 men excited to play football on Sunday? Seems like he can. Can you get these coaches prepared to go out there and put a good game plan together? It seems like he can. That's what I care about. That's what I think is going to be key to the Chicago Bears' future at the end of the day. And that's what I'm most focused on, man, honestly. Honestly, that's the part, right? Even going into this game versus the Lions, right? Again, how prepared is this Bears team going to be? Can we really say that there's a week this season, maybe early on, but for the most part, I think this season, the Chicago Bears have been pretty prepared to go out and play football. For the most part this season, the Chicago Bears have been they've understood who they're playing against. They've understood how they need to play something defensively, offensively, different situations like that, right? They've kind of figured that out. So for me, right, that's the part that I'm looking at, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like I love that. We come out of a mini bye. Not only do we win the game, but we kick the crap out of them. You went through a tough part of your schedule right here, and you've lost what? Well, what have we lost? 4 or 5 or something like that? You lost to the Commanders. You beat the Patriots. You lose to you lose to Dallas. You've lost 3 or 4. You lose to Dallas. You lost Miami. And yet I still look at this team like, hey, they look prepared. They look like they're ready for this moment. They look like, now on the defensive end, I could see a little bit more. On the defensive end, I think that they've looked a little unprepared in the first quarter. They've come out in these first halves a little flat. But the team as a whole seems like, okay, I understand what I need to do. This is what we want to do offensively. This is the game plan that we have. This is how, okay, now we need to adjust this. And on top of that, right, going into the half and coming out of the other side of the half, shout out to them. They've been prepared. So I love that we have this leader of men in place for once. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing for the Chicago Bears moving forward, man, that it's not just a coach or a coordinator or somebody that's out there trying to call the best defense or somebody that's out there trying to call the best offense. It's a guy that looks at the guys on the field and says, hey, I understand what you're going through. I understand what you're trying to accomplish here. Let's accomplish this together. I'm going to be the fixed point at the front. That's what you want to see in a head coach. Got a little bit more to go here, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, man. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talk. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. We've broken down the Lions game, previewing the Lions and Bears game, man. Really feel like the Bears should be able to come out of this with a win. I guess I didn't give a prediction on that. I do still have the Bears winning, of course. Y'all know I'll never say that the Bears are going to be worse than a Detroit team. Like, come on now. I got the Bears winning this one. I don't know if I have a resounding win, but I do have the Bears being able to put up some points. I got this one as a 32-17 17 win. I just don't think the Lions offense is very good. Now, granted, right, like everything I said, I do think that if you let Jared Goff sit back there, he'll be able to pick you apart. You just don't have the pressure to get on these guys. And they have 3, I believe, offensive line, first-round picks in the offensive line that look like they're pretty good. But I do got the Bears coming out with a pretty convincing win in this one, man. So hopefully we'll be talking about a win on Sunday. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us. Hit that like button, like I said. Let's go into a little bit different topic, right? Because we do got to talk about what is going on with this Chicago Bulls team right now. The Bulls looking very, very interesting last night in a hard-fought game versus the New Orleans Pelicans, a game where I absolutely felt like the Bulls could have won that game, a game where I absolutely felt like the Bulls had enough talent on the team to win that game. You got Andre Drummond back. Vooch got cooked last night, which is tough, but he came on a little bit late in the second half. Here's the thing that I'm looking at with this Chicago Bulls team finishing games. And it's probably the most confusing part to me. I think yesterday in the New Orleans Pelicans game, Billy Donovan called 7/8 of a game perfectly. Thought Patrick Williams being on Zion in the first half did a really good job. You switch Patrick Williams on to Brandon Ingram in that first half. He did a really good job there. I think that, Zach LaVine started to get himself going, started to be able to cook. We saw a little bit of Zach TV there. All of a sudden, his shooting night doesn't continue. That's okay. DeMar DeRozan absolutely still being able to keep going. I'm able to put up points. I'm getting to the bucket. He's getting it. Now, listen, one of the worst officiated games I've seen this season. I can't say all time because I've seen some pretty bad ones with the Bulls, but one of the worst officiated games I've seen this season. I don't know who the heck that officiating crew. You had that one announcer or that one referee out there that had a mechanic's hairline. He looked like he had been sitting underneath somebody's car trying to fix their muffler all day, and then he came out and refereed a game. I think that there were calls missed, but at the end of the day, that was a winnable game for the Chicago Bulls. It was a very winnable game for the Chicago Bulls, and I'm looking at Billy Donovan in the closing moments of that game, in that fourth quarter, and I am confused on why you don't have Patrick Williams out there in the fourth quarter. I don't understand why you don't have Patrick Williams guarding Brandon Ingram as he's heating up, guarding Zion Williamson as he's heating up, right? Like, those are the moments where I'm looking at, okay, hey, that guy's here, right? Like, it's not like we got P. Will out here. Like, I think we're seeing more offensive presence. We're seeing more of a offensive, a want-to on the offensive end. He's pulling the jump shot. He's pulling the three ball. He's being very efficient when he's taking shots this season, right? I think all of those things are true. But we know what we have Patrick Williams for, at least right now on this team. He's supposed to be your defensive stopper. He's supposed to be the guy that's slowing guys down. He's supposed to be the guy that comes out there and uses his length and physicality to absolutely slow down the other team. And all of a sudden, I look out on the court and Patrick Williams is nowhere to be found, not only in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, but pretty much in the fourth quarter at all. You put him out there a little bit early, right? And Zion started going after him. And so your mindset on that was to go to Alex Caruso guarding BI and switching on to Zion Williamson a little bit. And here's the thing, even with that, I understand the mindset right before that, right? Because they come out, BI's getting hot. He knocks down he gets fouled on the 3-point line, knocks down 3 free throws. I believe at that point it is a 7-point game. The Bulls have to get some offense to come back. You do. You've got to put some offense out there. You do, 100%. So what's he do? He goes with a lineup that's Caruso, Dragic, LaVine, DeMar, and I believe DJJ might have been out there. I believe it might have been DJJ. Or maybe Io. Actually, it might have been Io. One of them, right? You need a little more offense on this lineup. All right, we're going to put some offensive guys out there. We're going to put some guys out there that can score the basketball. You come back in the game. You take a lead. At that point, you need to slow down Brandon Ingram from cooking. And this has been something that I've talked about with Billy Donovan quite a bit. I do think that Billy Donovan does a lot of good things. And there's a lot of times for me, right, where I'm not going to sit there and just blame the head coach. I'm not going to sit there and just say, hey, listen, you're not doing a good job coaching this game. You didn't do a good job. Because, right, like you get in a huddle. And Billy Donovan, you've heard the huddles, right? Billy Donovan is not a coach that's just sitting there in a huddle and telling you everything's fine, everything's okay. He's going to point out the things that you're doing wrong. He's going to point out where you're struggling. He's going to point out out the things that you need to improve upon. At that point, I'm looking at the players to make plays. But last night, I do not believe that Billy Donovan put the Chicago Bulls in the best position defensively to win this game, because even if you have Patrick Williams out there instead of Alex Caruso, and I understand going with the vet in those closing moments over the younger guy, but like even if you have Patrick Williams out there in that situation, he still can give you something offensively. Alex Caruso this season to this point has given you nothing offensively. He's a defensive specialist. He's a guy that can facilitate the ball. He's a guy that's going to be the hustle guy. I love all of that. Again, I think the officiating was poor. They were calling fouls that were phantom fouls. They weren't calling fouls on the other end for the Chicago Bulls. I think that there's been a lot of times, and Billy Donovan spoke to this in his press conference, there's been a lot of times where you're looking out there and DeMar DeRozan is absolutely getting raked across the face and nobody is calling a foul here. 100%. I believe all of that is true. But in the closing moments of that game, you did not put your team in the best position to be successful. In the closing moments of that game, you did not put your team in the best position to get a stop. Even when you put Vooch back on the floor and Vooch comes out, he knocks down a couple of big threes, huge threes. All of a sudden, he's awake. Boom, we got Vooch in the game. Let's go. I love this. I don't believe that Billy Donovan put the Chicago Bulls in the closing moments of that game in the best position to be successful defensively on the other end. You want to roll with Caruso? I like Caruso. I think Caruso does some really good things defensively. I think that he's a piece that can be out there. Sit somebody else down. I believe we went DJJ in the closing minutes of that game. Sit somebody else down. Because clearly you're going with the vet over the rook in that, or over the second-year player in that situation. You're going Caruso over Ayo. You needed big plays. You needed big moments. And those are the moments that you want to have your best player on the lineup out there. And guess what? Patrick Williams is your best length defender on the team. DJJ is making a case for it, but Patrick Williams is your best length defender on the team. And so for me, right, like I would have loved to see P. Will out there. I thought that was a miss. On the player side, right, got to execute better. Bulls were the same way. They played 7/8 of a game really well. The Bulls defensively in the first half did an excellent job guarding the stars. B.I. was baffled. C.J. McCollum essentially wasn't a part of the game. Zion Williamson couldn't figure out how to get through Patrick Williams early. And now you know Zion's going to figure it out. You know that B.I. is going to figure it out, right? Like those are guys that are playmakers. C.J., I don't know what's going on with C.J. C.J. might be a little bit injured. He might be. He looked like he was a little bit off all night last night, but at the end of the day, you knew that those guys were going to at some point start scoring the basketball. They were going to figure it out. Zion was going to, I think Zion went into the half with 2 shots. You knew that he was going to finish that game with taking more than 2 shots, right? So that's what I'm looking at and saying, okay, hey, listen, you guys did a great job in the first half of the game. Heck, in the third quarter, I think you had some really good defensive moments that really put you in a good position. And then all of a sudden, right, like in that fourth quarter, you start to see B.I. going and you just start to self-implode. There's 2 things that I continue to see from the Chicago Bulls team this season that are really, really concerning to me. A lack of offensive ability in multiple moments in this game. I don't know. I don't know why we're seeing this so often, but I believe there were 4 or 5 scoring droughts by the Chicago Bulls in this game. 8-0 runs, 9-0 runs, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? Like you can't have those moments. That's essentially 15 minutes on a court of not scoring. I wish I had the actual like breakdown of it. I think we saw 4 5-0, 6-0, 7-0 runs, stuff like that, right? Where the Bulls just aren't scoring for 2-3 minutes. And guess what? Yeah, on the defensive end, if you're able to hold up, you're able to withstand that. And I feel like those are the things that you look at, right? And say, okay, well, if we're playing good defense, it doesn't hurt you as much. But that's the time where they start getting going. Too many of these offensive scoring droughts, and then just too many miscues. The small things. I'm not even saying that the Bulls played a horrible game in this game. They had to deal with terrible officiating. They had to deal with Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram actually getting going at the end of the day, right? Like they had to deal with a lot of it's an uphill battle. And Valanciunas was cooking Vooch all night. Well, I should say in the first half. Valanciunas was absolutely cooking Vooch in the first half. They played Drummond on him quite a bit in the second half. Drummond got most of his minutes, I think, in the second half of that game defensively. And then DJJ did a better job on him. But when Valanciunas was going up against Vooch, he was absolutely cooking Vooch. But at the end of the day, you're seeing too many of those scoring droughts on the other end. And then you had to deal with, okay, now Zion's cooking. Now BI's cooking. You knew those moments were coming. And that's why not to say, right, you're not going to have scoring droughts. That is. You're going to have times where the ball's not falling, but it's the shot selection on that. It's the fact that there's no offensive sets on that. It's the fact that there's no, okay, let's go to the thing that we do the best. Let's go to the thing that we can do most. Let's set a pick and roll here. Let's figure out a pick and pop. And the execution of those, the execution of the pick and roll, right? Like, how many times have we seen a pick and roll going? Vooch doesn't really cut that hard. And then DeMar DeRozan's trying to flip it over the top and the ball gets tipped and it's going the other way, right? Like the execution on the pick and roll, the execution on just grabbing the basketball. Like the Bulls are trying to make plays before the plays there to be made. That's how the game ends. You see the ball get inbounded. I think Billy was saying there could have been a better screen there because of the positioning. DeMar had to reach out a little further. The ball goes off. The ball hit him in the hand. Worst spot for him to hit. Hits him in the hand, goes off the leg, goes out of bounds. As you see it, ball hits him in the hand. DeMar's looking to turn and make a play already. We're not there yet. You got to grab the ball before you can make the play. And so that's the part to me where I'm looking at and I'm saying, okay, yeah, the Bulls are definitely, I think the Bulls are in a good position. The Bulls are competing a lot. They're competing against the better teams. It's still early on in the season. You're 6-7. Whoop-de-doo. We've seen teams. We saw a team last year middle until they figured it out, and then they go on to win the NBA Finals, right? Like sometimes that's actually the NBA. You're feeling out a lot of these teams. You're trying to figure out what they're doing well. You're trying to figure out what you're going to be able to do well. But I'll tell you what, there's things that do linger throughout the season, and I think the things that linger most, and you got 4 days off here. You don't play again till Sunday. I think the thing that lingers most with this Bulls team is the continued, there's no sets, there's no offensive game plan, there's no play call for you to go to when you have these scoring droughts. Like, what's your go-to play? What's the one that you know is going to work versus this team? What's the one that you know you're going to be able to get a bucket against? Because a lot of times, right, just making that layup, all of a sudden, we see an influx of offense come from that. We see an influx of offense come from that. So over these next 4 days, that's what I want to see. Let's see that in practice. And I also will say, right, like at the end of the day, they haven't practiced. With the schedule they had, they might have run probably 3 or 4 practices since the season has started. They more than likely haven't done a ton of practice. They're doing shoot-arounds, walkthroughs, different things like that. But their season has been go, 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 go. Now they get a little bit of break. Now you get some days in between, right, where I believe it's 4 days till our next game. We don't play again until Sunday. So you're going to get a little bit of rest. You're going to get a couple of practices in this week. You're going to get a couple of practices in next week, right? Like, I think those are the things that you have to look. And that's the time where you can work on a lot of the issues that you've seen. That's the time where you can work on a lot of the problems this team has had. So for me, right, like now I want to see a lot of these things get fixed in between this game and the next game. And you got to slow, bro, like the season's been weird, bro. Like let's not trip on it this early in the season. I know there's Bulls fans in here that are like fire Billy Donovan. I know there's Bulls fans in here that like trade Zach LaVine. I know there's Bulls fans in here that the sky is falling because we're 6-7. But at the end of the day, it's very early in the season. Very early in the season. The Dallas Mavericks are losing to the Orlando Magic. The Utah Jazz are at the top of the Western Conference. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that are weird to start this season, and I think that it will balance itself out. And I'm not that worried about, okay, is this Bulls team going to be good at the end of the year? I don't think they're going to be a play-in team. I don't think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. I think that the Eastern Conference is going to be very close, but I think that the Bulls have been in enough of these moments that they'll start to get on the winning side of a lot of these moments, and that's all that matters. Now, if you have some issues, if you go through some losing droughts, if you go through a couple of losing streaks, right? Like, yeah, then I'm going to have some, then I'm going to be looking and be like, hey, listen, y'all got to get this together. But right now, right, like, not to say it's just early in the season, but I think that now you're going to get an opportunity for Zach LaVine to actually continue to play in games. He's going to be able to build up a little bit more of a rhythm. You haven't been able to do that. I think you're going to get the opportunity for DeMar DeRozan to get a little bit more rest, Nikola Vucevic to get a little bit more rest. As the team is getting healthier, Andre Drummond's going to be able to work himself back in. Andre Drummond really had a poor game his first game back. He struggled mightily, but, first game back. So I think there was a lot of factors going against the Bulls, especially, and when you add officiating on top of that, it's not going to make things easier. But at the end of the day, I'm still not worried about this Bulls team just yet. I'm still looking at, are there things that I want to see them fix? Yeah, but I'm not sitting here and saying you guys are going to be the worst team in the Western Conference. Or in the Eastern Conference, I should say. You know what I mean? Like, I think that this team has improved. I mean, the fact that we're competing with these top teams, that we're beating these top teams. We're in games with the Boston Celtics. We're competing in these games, right, with the New Orleans Pelicans, who are a good team. I don't care what nobody says. The New Orleans Pelicans are a good team. We've been competitive in just about every game this season outside of that Cleveland game. We fought through. And, yeah, at the beginning of the season, sometimes those are the games you lose, right, because it's your first time seeing them. You haven't figured it out. You're trying to figure it out, whatever it is, right? Now you got to figure out how to get the job done, how to close the deal, how to seal the deal. And I think that that's what's going to be the rest of the season. Because remember last year, we weren't even competitive in these games. We were getting our butts kicked, getting our butts handed to us every game. We're not seeing that this season. So I think that there's some good signs for the Chicago Bulls going through this season, man. I'm going to get up out of here, though. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us for another episode of The Daily Show. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below as well. I'll be down there talking with you guys, and we'll have some content posted on the channel today. No Bulls live calls, so we'll definitely have some content posted on the channel today because I will be able to actually relax. As always, man, it's your boy, Pat the Designer, back at it again. We will be live to finish out the week tomorrow, Friday. And then just a heads up, guys, my start date to go back to work is on the 21st of November. So I'll be back at work on the 21st. So the show will probably be pre-recorded from that point on. If I get days where I can't go live, I will go live. But for the most part, it'll probably be a pre-recorded show. So if you see me kind of not interacting with the chat, it's because like I didn't record it with the chat. But I will be in the chat more than likely talking with you guys. So I appreciate you guys for showing love and sticking with us on this journey, man. As always, man, it's your boy, Pat the Designer, back at it again. To continue watching our Chicago sports content, click the links on the screen to check the links in the description below. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago, and enjoy this great fall weather, man. Peace.